In this video, we are going to look at two methods for solving the quadratic equation 2 times the quantity x plus 3 squared minus 1 equals 49. So on the left-hand side, we're going to solve this equation using a very familiar process, which is solving by factoring or the zero product property. Now, you might notice that this equation is not in standard form. Well, that's okay because we are able to quickly manipulate the equation to put it in standard form, which will allow us to use factoring or the zero product property to solve. And then it's going to feel very familiar because it is a method that you've used many, many times already. So in order to turn this equation into standard form, the first thing I want to do is square the binomial x plus 3. Remember, that's when we write the binomial twice, and we are going to multiply the binomial x plus 3 by itself. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, is I'm going to multiply x plus 3 times x plus 3. That will give me the trinomial x squared plus 6x plus 9. And then I write the rest of the equation. And my next step is going to be to distribute 2. So that's going to give me 2x squared plus 12x plus 18. So 2x squared plus 12x plus 18. Now, at the same time, I'm also going to subtract 49 from both sides because remember, to get my equation in standard form means I want it to be set equal to 0. So after I simplify, I will get 2x squared plus 12x plus, or actually I should say minus 32 equals 0. So after I combine all those constants, I get minus 32. So now you know your next thing to do is to look for a GCF, and we have a GCF of 2. So that leaves us with the trinomial x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. So after I factor out the 2, I have 2 times the trinomial x squared plus 6x minus 16 equals 0. So now I have to factor that trinomial. So I need numbers that multiply to negative 16 that add up to positive 6. So this becomes 2 times the binomial x plus 8 times x minus 2 equals 0. And then from there, I get two linear equations for my solutions. X plus 8 equals 0, and then I also get x minus 2 equals 0. And then when I solve those linear equations, I get two solutions, and they are x equals negative 8 and also x equals 2. So like I said, this was an equation that we already knew how to solve even before we introduced the new method, which is the square root property. So now let's take a look at the square root property. In order to use the square root property, we want to think of this equation as being of the form a times the quantity x minus h squared equals a constant k. Well, I almost have that set up. All I have to do is add 1 to both sides to get that exact setup. Then I will have 2 times the binomial x plus 3 quantity squared is equal to 50. So now I'm able to use the square root property to solve. And then when we're done, I will let you be the judge to determine which method you like best. Okay, so now my goal is to isolate the quantity that is being squared. So since the binomial x plus 3 is being squared, I want to divide both sides by 2 in order to isolate that binomial x plus 3. So when I divide both sides by 2, I'm left with the binomial x plus 3 squared is equal to 25. So again, your goal when you're using the square root property is to isolate the quantity that is being squared, because then you can use the square root property like this. You'll take the square root of both sides, but just remember when you take the square root of 25, don't forget you need the plus and minus version of the square root of 25. This should help you, or you should remember this by remembering that there's going to be two solutions in this equation because our highest power was 2. So remember, when your highest power of the equation is 2, it tells you that you're going to have two solutions. So that should help you remember to use the plus or minus version of the square root of 25. That's where the two solutions are going to come from. If you just take the square root of 25 without doing the plus or minus, you'll only get one solution, and then you'll be missing out on half of your solution set. So after we square root both sides, we are left with the binomial x plus 3, but now that equals plus or minus 5 because we took the square root of 25 and we took the principal square root as well as the negative square root, hence the plus or minus. So now I can drop those parentheses since nothing's being squared anymore, and I get x plus 3 equals plus or minus 5. So now I want to isolate x. The way to do that is to subtract 3 from both sides. So I'm going to show my subtracting 3 from both sides. So now on the left, I just get x. But now this is where my two solutions come from, because I get x equals either positive 5 minus 3, or I get x equals negative 5 minus 3. That's the plus or minus 5. So that is the point where I split it into two different solutions. So for the first solution, 5 minus 3, I'm going to get x equals 2. And for the second solution, negative 5 minus 3 gives me x equals negative 8. And now if you look over on the left-hand side, you will see that we do, in fact, get the same exact solutions. So either method is acceptable to use to solve this equation, but like I said, now you have more tools in your toolbox. I will leave it up to you to decide which method you prefer. Now, just keep in mind, moving forward, not every equation will be able to be factored. So sometimes the square root property is going to be your best and most effective method, but it's always nice to have that extra tool hanging off your tool belt. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video. You are now a master at solving this equation using two methods.